Hi, this is John with John's Workshop, and in this episode of working on the 2008 GL550, I'm going to tackle the Airmatic suspension. Originally, I thought it was just a matter of a compressor, but as you'll see in this video, there's a little more to it than that. The new compressor arrived, and here it is. I'm putting the suspension, those rubber suspension bushings in here, and you can see they actually don't look too bad from before. So essentially just putting these back in. I'm going to go ahead and replace this intake filter here, which you can see here this hose is broken, and it's like a pre-formed hose. So I went ahead and spent the money and got a new intake filter, and see the bent hose there. So put that on. New compressor's installed. You can see it on its little vibration mounts there. So that's installed. We've got our new intake hose, and that runs up to the new filter, which is right there. So the input side of things should be good. I put the Airmatic suspension controller back in. It's the one that still, had some corrosion on it, but I've tried to clean it off inside there. Putting it back in here, and I'm going to hook up the battery, and we're going to see what happens. Well, the answer is it didn't work. We've still got a malfunction, and there's no pumping from the compressor. So I suspect that our box here just didn't survive the moisture. I ran a quick test with the star system, and you can see there's a lot of faults there, a lot of F. So we got some issues there. Like here, I'm not sure what's going on. The front signal acquisition module seems okay, but the back is saying is a fault. So we'll just see what that says. Well, some of these faults look like they could be just because we don't have the headliner in, and there's a bunch of stuff that's disconnected. Here's what I get when I try to communicate with the Airmatic, and you can see that it just basically doesn't think it's in there, which tells me there's probably a problem on the board. Now the other thing is, it says that the control module, one of the options is the control module is not part of the standard configuration, and for this reason could not be fitted, and that potentially could be the problem also. So it can pass the test with the central gateway. So that's not it. Now it's running a test to the engine compartment CAN network, and this has taken a really long time. Must be checking a lot of things. Okay, and here's the result of this test, and you can see the Airmatic. It says the CAN configuration specified value here is it's supposed to be present. CAN configuration actual value, it says it's not present. So that's either because it's not working, or it's could be improperly coded, which would mean that the central gateway module, or the SAM as it's also called, would have the wrong code in it. And so this one that I got off of eBay potentially just needs to be recoded. To do that, I got this CarProg unit off of Amazon, and going to use that to read the old unit first. Here's the menu in the CarProg software, and you want to get into dashboard and then go down to Mercedes, and then you double click on this MB service V05, and that brings up this menu here. And then from in here you pick a part number that's pretty close to the part that we've got. At least you need the same processor. So you can see A164 540. We can't, and then, 56. We can't quite get that, but we can get the 50. And so if we go there, it then shows the directions for how to connect this is the A10 connector and the wires and where to solder those, and you can see here it shows where to do that, and it also shows up here that this is the EEPROM in microprocessor number, and that actually does match the one on the board here. This is the choice that we want here. It pretty closely matches the part number on the processor, which is actually MC9S12 and then DT256, and this just has a B after it, so that's pretty close. Here's the board inside. It's a little tricky getting these off here, especially when they're so corroded like this, but this is the processor here, right here, that we're going to try to read the memory from. So you can see the part number on there. So I think we've selected the one that is closest to matching that. You can scrape the contact points where we want to solder to, because there's quite a bit of oxide that formed during the corrosion process there, so we can solder to it. This is where the gray goes. This one was the red. This is the blue. And then the brown goes here, so I'm going to solder those on. So this is what it looks like with the gray, red, blue, and brown wires connected where they're supposed to be on the board. Well, everything's connected up, so I'm going to hit the next button here, and we get this menu. And at this point, we're going to give it a try and see what happens when I hit the read. Uh-oh, that didn't look good. It didn't read anything. And it looks like it tried a number of times. Well, I found out what the problem was here. It's actually the green wire here that gets soldered on, not the brown wire. And found that out kind of inadvertently on YouTube, but then also verified it by checking the pinout on the chip. And here's the pinout. The green wire is, as you would expect, ground. And there really wasn't a ground coming here. So I checked the pinout, and between the green and the chip ground, there's continuity. And then between the +5, which is the red, here and here, we also go to the positive, the supply side of the chip. So that all makes sense. And now, here's what we get. When we hit the read, it actually does something. And there it goes. All right, and look, this is the one that I bought from eBay. So it is for JGB, this is a GL, and you can see it had 338, 121 for the kilometers, most likely, not miles. Here's service oil changes that it had, and here's, I guess these are services that it had here, and service days derived. So it's reading that, and then if we flip to this tab here, you can see it reads in all of the information, and then in here somewhere is all that information. So if I scroll down here, you can see this is excuse me, all binary data, but if we keep scrolling, we get down to the VIN. So here's the VIN here, and so all of that information that we just looked at is stored in here in some way. So there it is right there, and we can now read the EEPROM. Super excited about that. All right, so here is the read that it did from the one for the car itself, and you can see there it's 226,267 kilometers, which hopefully that's about 130,000 miles. Here we go, we're gonna write the code from the water damaged one onto the one from eBay. So here we go. Let's see what it does. Huh? It looks like it's doing something. Right? It's a little slower than when it was reading, so that, I guess, makes sense. And look, it's verifying, so that's a good sign. And it said it read okay. Now I'm getting into this whole thing again for a fresh instance of the reader, and then I'm going to read, and I should see what was in the one that was water damaged show up here. And there it goes. And look, the VIN is the right one, and I believe this is the right mileage. So that is looking good. Well, getting the box coded correctly did not solve the air suspension problem. So that is most likely because that box has been water damaged. So this is the box that had the water damage. That was the original one in the car, and this came from a friend of mine's car who is kind of getting rid of it. And so I'm going to put this in, which does not have water damage, and see if that solves the problem. Here's the moment we've been waiting for. Turn it to on. Oh, this is a good sign, I think, because I don't see the Airmatic problem, but I also don't hear the pump. We're gonna go ahead and start it and see what that does with the Airmatic here. And it's going up. Look at that. It's still going up. There it goes. It's rising. So now back here we actually have a little bit of clearance on the backside between the tire and the fender there. So there's the pump, and it's definitely running. So now it's saying it's being lowered. This seems crazy high in the front. Not sure why it is so high. Now it's doing something. So it'll just let itself down a little bit. It just is way high here. Well, Airmatic is pumping, and it's up, but too far up in the front. So I'm in the Star Diagnostics system, and this is the manual setup, and here I can see that I can lower the left front and lower the right front. But what you're really supposed to do is know the angle of the suspension lengths, but I need to find that out. But I know right away, just from looking at it, it's way high in the front. So I'm just trying to get this like a little bit better, but just kind of by eye looking at it. So I went in and cleared a bunch of fault codes, and it looks like we've got all the lights off on the instrument cluster. So after adjusting things kind of up and down using the measuring stick, I was able to get to these values on the readings, which I don't think that really means a whole lot. And then in terms of measuring, so here's the inclinometer, and I'm really looking not at the degrees, but up here at the percent. It's a little more accurate there. So that's the percent grade, and then there's the axle. So essentially I would go like this, put it on the axle, and then snap a picture like that. Then you end up with this picture in the bottom, and then that gives you the grade there, minus 6.8%, and that tells you the angle of the axle. And that's how we do the rear ones. So for the front, there's these little pads, 3 pads under the suspension arm here. And so I just use this piece of wood, which is kind of cut to the right size, and I could just put it here like this, see, and then that basically gets my plane, the 3 points that define that plane there. And then I would just use the same inclinometer phone to get the angle then of this suspension link here. So this is what I've got. I've got 4.35 degrees on the front, somewhere in the 4.1 degrees on the right front, and then 0 degrees on the back axle and 0.57 degrees on the right back axle there. So here's where I am, and I'm having a little troubles with that phone inclinometer. So I've got things pretty close, and I'm thinking I may just enter these values. It kicked me out last time because I didn't have my values within these ranges here, but I'm thinking I'm just going to go pick something that's in the middle of the range. It's going to be better than what was in the module previously. Oh no, look at this. I thought I was going to be okay. It says level signals are not within the valid range. The problem on the right front, anyways, was that this was just totally rusted up. This is the little lever arm, and here's the height sensor. This part actually moves really nicely, but this arm was just gunked on here, full of rust. It would not move. So when the car was going up and down, I think all that was happening was that this was just flexing like this. So really we were not getting any movement, hardly any movement in this guy as the car went up and down. So this is what the level sensor, this is on the left hand side, looks like. Pretty much the same as the one on the other side. And the shaft here in the sensor turns real nice, but this is totally frozen up right here. This side, it kind of moves a little bit, maybe not too bad really actually, but this is where the problem is right here. This just is completely frozen up. There, I got it just broken loose a little bit. You can see the rust in there is just terrible. There, the ball in there is really bad. So here's the rear sensor. Had to do the same thing, clean out the ball there, and you can see now it's got grease in it and it's moving well. I had to get a new one here because this arm was broken. So I've got this one here for the right side, and then this is the other one, and that goes on the left side. And so those are going back in, and for some reason these ball joints just get super locked up. I guess there's water that gets in there after a while. So anyways, I've got a bunch of grease in there, and hopefully that will keep these things moving for quite a long time to come. After cleaning all the arms and I replaced the right front sensor, I still see this relatively low voltage here, and it's got minus 100 millimeters. So trying to figure out why that is, because I think that's why it's not calibrating, because that level is quite a bit different from the left side, which is minus 59 millimeters. And you can see here the voltage is only 1 volt. Here it's 3.5 volts. There's a lot of play in the arms, and so like this 98, I could move that around a fair amount. It's pretty flexible, and if I shove this one way a little bit and that one the other way a little bit, they were actually pretty close. So I think my problem is that the arms are kind of worn out. This is the link rod on the left front. It's actually not in too bad a shape. But yeah, this was totally locked up. But I decided to order 2 new ones, particularly because of the one on the other side. But here's the new part. FCP Euro. I got it at a pretty good price. It was like $28, I think. So here's the brand new one. Let's compare, see how they look. Well, for one thing, boy, this is much harder to move, which is good. These just kind of flop around. So let's see here if this is the right one. Looks like that. That gives you an idea. You can see it's pretty close. But this is much stiffer in here. This one just flopping around, which is good because before it was actually stuck. So interesting. It's kind of like spring back. Is the old one isn't anything like this. So here we go. So on this side, these look pretty similar. So although you can see there's a little bit of a difference there in terms of the length. I think this has probably been messed up because this was bound up and the length of hair has probably gotten changed because it was compressed a little bit. But here's the arm installed. This is the left side of the car. And you can see it's pretty sturdy. Really, it doesn't really hardly move around at all, which is different than the original that was in there that's all worn. So looks pretty good here, and ready to move to the other side. This is the right hand link. Just taking it out. This is I'd already cleaned this up and greased it, but and then here's the new part. So I'm taking that and there on this side of the car. So this is what it's supposed to look like here, and this is what it does look like. So you can see this one's pretty deformed. Look at that. It actually looks like it was originally a little bit thicker too, but boy, I think the fact that this locked up, and this probably wasn't too good either, it ended up just getting pretty deformed. So it's no wonder the sensor, the level sensor, was reading too far off. It's like this one is kind of too short at this point. So this one's going on the car. One thing that's handy to have when you're reassembling this is one of these little, this is a carburetor wrench, and it's real thin. This happens to be Craftsman 5/16, but that will get right in there and hold the flat while you're tightening that 10mm nut right there. And there's the link installed, and now it's going to be the same as the one on the left side of the car. With the new links, we see now that these two front sensors are a lot closer. They're not the same, but 51 and 69 is a lot closer than before. I think the right one before was like minus 98 or 100, so it's better. It's not exactly the same there, but I think we may be close enough. So here I've just entered nominal values. I don't know that these are exactly right, but we're going to see what happens if we can at least get a calibration here. We can always go back and readjust this. All right, perform level calibration with values entered, and we're going to say yes, and we'll see what happens. Oh, look at that. They were close enough and we were able to calibrate. So that was the problem with the previous arrangement, was we just had those links were too different. Now I'm just going to run through a quick check of pressures to see how uniform we are. So here's, looks like 5.9 on the front left, and then on the front right, ooh, not very symmetric. That's 8.1 on the front right. So now we're going to check the rears. So left rear, 8.1, and then right rear, 5.5. So that's kind of what I suspected. We have diagonally high pressures on the So it would be the left rear and the right front. So we don't really want to keep the calibration like that. We want to correct that. Now that I've adjusted the pressures a little bit, I can't seem to get it to calibrate again. This is what the values are, and I'm wondering if we've got a discrepancy up here. This is 3.7, this is 1.24. So there's quite a bit of difference, again, between the left and the right. For some reason, not sure why that is, but that right front seems low, or the left front seems high. Okay, I tried raising the front a little bit more, so those voltages changed, but still no go. In the actuation screen, I said move towards calibrated level, and it did. First I cleared the faults, and then this is what we have for the levels, which don't really look close to what we had before, but it says it was successful. So there we go. And then these are some of the other ones you can do. I'm going to go ahead and say what are actual values now. And we'll go to the level sensors. And there we have it. So this is what it thinks, I guess, the calibrated levels. So you can see 3 volts, this is 1.98, 1.92, 3.06. So those are quite different than what we had before. With those levels that it went to, here you can see it's about, say, roughly 32 and say 5/8. This is front left, and then front right is, that might be like 32 and pretty close, 3/4. It's within 1/8. And then here is rear, right rear is, well, maybe call that a 33 and a maybe 5/8 or 3/8. And here's the left rear, which is more like 32 and 3/4. So that's quite a bit different. Uh-oh, it's now saying malfunction here, so that's not good. Now we're moving to the calibrated values again. There, it says it successfully ended. Okay, reading the level sensors again, actual values, that look pretty close to what they were before. But here I'm looking at the fault codes again, and it's already set. Level calibration not successfully carried out, current and stored. Alright, so with it driven to the calibration values, I'm going to see if I can actually get this to calibrate. So I put the readings in there that I was using before, just kind of the average ones. And hit F2 here, and hit F3 and say yes, and see what happens. Oh, look at that. It says it was successful. Alright, and now no fault codes present. Here's where the level sensors are, and I'm going to go ahead and try to raise things a little bit because the measured values seem a little off, like it's a little bit too low. So I'm going to be trying to raise it in the actuations mode for the initial startup. Alright, so I did move things around a little bit, and the best I could do measuring wise, I entered here. You can see these are at the limits. This is at the limit, this one's at the other limit. So I was doing a quick calculation here of what the numbers needed to be in the range, and this is what I ended up with, is -9, which was too negative. This was a little bit too negative. I had 12.6 here, which was too positive, and then about 0.1 here, which was just at the kind of the high end of the range. So we're gonna see here what happens. Okay, so we're going to say F3, yes. And it says it's successful, so we were pretty close. And I feel like that's closer than it was before. So I'm going to say, okay, good. With those values, this is what we end up with here. So we've got 27, 28, 33, and 28 here. And you can see the voltages here. So that is, the calibration is complete. Now I'm going to move towards calibrated values, so we'll see what happens here. Okay, here we go. All right, and let's start. And it says it was good. So I'm just going to be measuring here. This is like right at 33, the left front. Here's the right front. Gee, that looks pretty good too, 33. Here's the right rear, maybe 33 3/4. Here's the left rear, and it's about 33 1/4, so it's maybe just a little bit off, maybe a little on the low side. So that's not completely unexpected based on what we were seeing before. Now after that, moving to calibrated values, you can see here the voltages and heights, so pretty close. Looks like -29 to -31 on the rear, -29 to -31 on the front. So that looks pretty good. Voltages are all right in the right range there, 2.88, 2.1, 2.08, 2.96. So I think we're good now with the Airmatic. Okay, I just pushed the button and it says the car is rising. And this is flashing here, meaning that it's in the middle of doing something. Look at this. It's definitely getting higher. No question about it. Look at that. And I hear the air pump inside there running. Okay. Wow. That's quite a bit higher than it was. Let's run it again. There's that pump. And inside here it says raised level, and this is not flashing anymore. Okay, so now that it's raised, you see the front left is about maybe 34 5/8, and the front right is maybe a little more than 34 3/4. Here's the rear, right rear, it's about maybe 35 1/2. And left rear is, yeah, a little low. It's about 34 1/2. Showing here the values. So you can see we're like 6, 18, 14, 15. So again, this left rear is a little bit low. But it did raise with that compressor running a lot. I figured it was pressurizing that the central reservoir, and there it is, 11.7 bar, so it is pretty high pressure. Before I put the fender liner back in here, I'm gonna hit some of the rusty spots here with wire brush, like this, and then some grease, and try to prevent this rust from getting worse. So you can see there's all kinds of little spots here, so I'm just going to go through it, try to clean things up a little bit before putting this fender liner back in here. Put a little bit of coating of grease on some of the things in here, just kind of to make me feel a little better, so I don't have so much exposed rust just sitting there. And so now I'm going to put the fender liner in, which then I won't really have access to this unless I want to pull it back out again. I love this Airmatic suspension because look what you can do for changing the oil. You just raise it up and you can get the drain pan right under there, no problem. Well, if you're still watching, thanks for hanging in there. I know this one got kind of long, it got kind of complicated. I was hoping that it would have just been a simple matter of replacing that compressor, but as you can see, there was a lot more to it than that, and a lot of other things that were not quite right with the car to start with. So thanks again for watching, and in the next episode, I'm going to tackle the other electronics boxes that were under the driver's seat, so you'll see what happens next.